Bali Tourism Office explains intent of Villa Moratorium Plan. And Tribun Bali special interview with Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy Sandiaga Uno. Is Bali really over tourism? Stay tuned for details on these stories and more. Welcome to the latest news from Bali and Indonesia. This is September 7th, 2024 and the 8th, and my name is Bruce. Okay, welcome back. This is September 8th and the second part of this video. And so let's get into it. Bali Tourism Office explains intent of Villa Moratorium Plan. The Bali Tourism Office, Discourse, responded to the widespread information about plans for a moratorium on the construction of villas or similar tourism accommodations in Bali, especially in Denpasar, Badung, Gianyar, and Tabanan, Sarbagita areas. The head of Bali Tourism Office, Pak Luhut, said that this discussion aims to reorganize tourism, especially in South Bali, and is not only a matter of temporarily stopping development, but that there are several interrelated things. The moratorium is for governance. I don't know what the end result is yet, but we want better governance, he said. Pak Luhut explained that initially the central government asked the Bali provincial government to convey if problems occurred, such as deviant behavior of tourists and traffic congestion conditions on the road. In fact, so far the government has tried to socialize the do's and don'ts, the rules, and they formed a task force, but I don't think they've been very effective. Finally, he continued, Pak Luhut, the Coordinated Minister of Maritime Affairs and Investment, Pak Luhut, and Pak Sandiaga both said that a limited meeting is going to be held, and I talked about that in the last videos, and the meetings will be held, I guess, next week. We'll see what's going to happen there. The meeting is planned to discuss three things, namely the regulation of online single submission, OSS, licensing to involve the role of regional figures, the cessation of the conversion of rice fields into commercial land, and a moratorium on the construction of villas or similar tourism accommodations in South Bali. Bali Tourism Office itself is not yet sure what regulations will be issued. However, these issues are interrelated, where dense development is often unorganized because the permits are not in the hands of the provincial government. That's the OSS, it's one stop. They give permits out, and sometimes the local people, like it seems like usually, don't know what's going on. In principle, the moratorium is temporary. Well, I don't know where it's going, and until when? Because Bali wants its governance to be improved, both from the OSS side, what needs to be done, so that the Bali provincial government has a role there. So far, foreign investment has often been overlooked. When there's a new case, we find out. So now we are asking for the province to be involved from the start. Because as I said, people get their permits from the OSS, and then local people don't know about it, and then there's all these problems. With the central government's plan to consolidate these three issues, the Bali provincial government hopes that the next tourism management can be better. Pak Luhut feels that when the moratorium on the construction of villas and similar tourist accommodations and the cessation of land conversion and the regulation of OSS permits are carried out, tourism will be more controlled. First, where later the Bali provincial government will be given some authority when someone wants to do development, they'll check first with local people. Bali is one island. Let us monitor and evaluate everything to control development. So far, after a new case goes viral, we only know that it turns out that it's the authority or the district or the center who puts it, not us local people. And another main story, Tribun Bali special interview with Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy, Sandiaga Uno. Is Bali really over tourism? Various problems in Bali tourism management have emerged, especially now. If you look at Bali, tourism visits have increased, including in Indonesia as a whole. In fact, the number of tourism visits has increased drastically and has even matched the conditions before being hit by the pandemic. After many tourists started visiting, a phenomenon was found that the quality of tourists coming to Indonesia, especially Bali, experienced a decline. Pak Sandiaga explained this problem in a podcast hosted by the Tribun Bali editor-in-chief, Pak Luhut. Here is an excerpt from the interview. Question: based on the data, are the number of tourists entering Bali the same as before the COVID pandemic? Let's talk about data first, is the answer. So it's true. The tourist visits to Bali have increased significantly, and oh my, it will reach 6.4 million tourists entering Indonesia in the second half of 2024, 45% of which will be through Bali. So if we look at it, foreign tourist visits to Bali from January to June have exceeded the numbers before the pandemic in 2019, which if we look at it, was only around 2.8 million. Now it's above 3 million. Therefore, we see more and more of these tourists who are qualified or not. I think quality or not. We see that the average expenditure is increasing, and of course the government wants that to happen. So the quality of these tourists is actually getting better, and they stay longer in Bali. That's how we measure quality. Yeah, money. But well, there is a but, that from the total number of tourist visits, those who want to be caught through conversations on social media are mostly naughty devils who act up by breaking the rules, including violating the norms of customs and culture in Bali, and this must be dealt with firmly until deported. As of July 2024, there have been 247 foreign nationals deported. That means compared to a total of 3 million, this is 0.000%. It is. So in the grand scheme of things, he said, we've only got 247 deportations out of 3 million tourists. A lot of people doing stuff they're not supposed to that are not in that 247. You just haven't caught them, Pak Sandiaga. This means that we must unite to socialize to the world that we will provide a deterrent effect for tourists who act up, so that the tourists, the majority of whom are 99.9% good, will be more orderly in the future. So this quality and sustainable aspect can also be captured on social media, so it does not become a discussion that is not based on data. Right, because he is seemingly aware that there's a lot of negative stuff being said about Bali right now in terms of waste, in terms of traffic jams, in terms of just too many people at places. If you take a look at those, beautiful selfies that people do, they've got, the sunset in the background, a nice temple thing, and then they move the camera over this way, and there's a line of 200 people waiting to take the same photograph to put on Instagram or on TikTok. That's what cultural tourism has become in Bali. Question, does this mean that based on the data, there are actually still many quality tourists? Answer, that's right. So we respond to it, of course, by taking firmer action so that later it will be busy on social media that Immigration and Ministry of Manpower is tightening visas and work permits. For example, coordination with the Bali provincial government, which we must firmly fill in our social media, and there is an integrated task force that has been formed. Together, we continue to support the development of local businesses. Yesterday, together with Tribun Bali, we went to the village of Les in Buleleng. Over that way. Then we also went to Penambangan Beach near Singaraja, so over that way, because we believe that we must anticipate mitigation. All activities that we can direct to North Bali, we are, because South Bali is starting to get too crowded. Question. Regarding the foreign nationals who are causing a lot of trouble, what efforts will the government take besides the firm actions mentioned above? Because just now there was also another incident in Gianyar where cars were robbed. Answer, well, if robbing this car isn't just in Bali in Indonesia, but abroad as well, it's a very unusual criminal act that should be strictly dealt with. And we will socialize this clearly so that the outside community knows we are a nation of laws and that there are sanctions and deterrent effects. I don't know. I just found this funny. So it's the same old story. We're going to socialize this clearly to the outside so that people don't come here thinking they can do what they want to. But some people come here and think they can do what they want to, and they do it. Pak Sandiaga said, secondly, in addition to being tough and spreading the information, we're doing a massive amplification through digitalization, that we have no tolerance for activities like this. Third, based on the Indonesian Quality Conference last week, we, under the coordination of the President and the Coordinating Minister, Pak Luhut, will also begin to provide a moratorium on hotel construction and land conversion from agricultural land to commercial land. Stay tuned to this for next week. I'm waiting to see what happens with this meeting. Boy, there are a lot of promises about what this meeting is going to come up with. What are the results going to be? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. There's going to be another story about this. With development that seems uncontrolled and reckless, these lawbreakers will think, oh, Indonesia doesn't obey the law, so I won't obey the law either. So we will do this by ensuring firm steps so that there are no violations of the law, nor is there over-tourism in our Sarbagita region, which is south of Bali, takes 70% of tourism, and they can share everything with West, North, and East Bali. Question, does this mean that Bali is currently experiencing over-tourism? Answer, in South Bali it is approaching. Said that this figure can still be considered not yet at the threshold, but we must start mitigation. Question, how to enforce regulations related to pollution, handling of garbage, noise, including the behavior of tourists who are eccentric and reckless? I like eccentric people. Yes, we must take action, he said. Question, what is the cause of over-tourism? That happens if the number of tourists exceed the carrying capacity of the tourism ecosystem. As of today, I've checked. Yes, we have big data, Nusa Dua. There's an indication for the first time that the occupancy rate is above 90%, above 93%. So can you imagine Iota Hotel with almost 600 rooms is 90% full? This was in the past 60 to 70%. Now we're up to 90 over tourism. That's my comment. So this is what we are monitoring closely. It seems that if we do not take firm action, it could exceed that threshold. Question, could it also be because one of the factors is that up to 200,000 foreigners are staying in Bali? Yes. Answer, there are 200,000 foreigners who stay in Bali. This must be checked properly. The resident permit must be checked. Do they work by taking the rights of local citizens? They really have to be insured to contribute to the nation's economy because our policy is to open up to tourists to enter Indonesia, but they must contribute to the economy and aspects of our nation and state. And more on the supposed moratorium. PHRI worries about South Bali moratorium discount is just political rhetoric. The Bali provincial government has written to the central government, as you know, asking about moratorium on construction of hotels and villas in the Sarbagita area, Badung, Tabanan, and Gianyar. Regarding this moratorium, it will also be discussed in a limited meeting of ministers, right, next week, right? How do tourism actors respond to this? Deputy Chairman of the Indonesian Hotel and Restaurant Association, PHRI, said that before determining this moratorium, it would be better to conduct research first. It's always research, never action. What is the ideal number of rooms for 7 million tourists? And does the infrastructure support it? I'm afraid this is just a political rhetoric discourse, but after the regional elections it will be silent again. What exists is data on all types of businesses. He further said that if this moratorium is directed towards dignified and quality tourism, it would also be better to conduct a data collection on the number of foreigners living and opening businesses at banks. It is also explained in detail which districts can be opened and closed for development. What about the permit that exists or does not exist? Foreigners try to sell villas abroad. How much is their real income? There are businesses that pay taxes and some that do not pay taxes. This can create unhealthy competition, he added. The moratorium has been discussed since the days of Pak Mangku Pastika, when he was governor of Bali, as I said. And, well, nothing happened then, and nothing has happened up to now. Ideally, when an area experiences overcapacity and overdevelopment as well as congestion, it's necessary to immediately sit down with stakeholders, academics, and the community. Where do we want to take Bali? There are 60,000 foreign nationals who live there, plus 21,000 foreign nationals coming in on a daily basis. And then the domestic tourists. All areas of South Bali have congestion. The implementation of the moratorium in the Sarbagita area should not be in all areas, he said, because according to him, areas like Tabanan have not experienced overdevelopment and they're still okay, while Badung and Denpasar have started to experience saturation points, and in Gianyar, especially Ubud, the infrastructure must be fixed. No problem, the moratorium has a positive impact on hotel occupancy and selling with management and business calculations. So it reduces unhealthy competition, he continued. The chairman said he's seen indications of over-tourism because there are indicators of tourist arrivals of 21,000 a day foreign and domestic of 18,000 a day. This data does not include arrivals from Gili Manuk and Padang Bai. The population of Bali, 4.4 million, so it's necessary to conduct a study on which should be moratorium and which should be developed, he said. Canggu has started to become Kuta, which must be rearranged because of traffic jams almost every day. The number of tourism accommodation businesses in Badung has reached more than 3,000. More from Pak Luhut. Luhut criticizes Bali's garbage More from Pak Luhut. Luhut criticizes Bali's garbage. Acting governor plans to use an incinerator. The garbage problem in Bali is still a major problem. The piles of garbage that are still piling up at Suwung TPA are proof that waste management is still homework for the government and the community. Of course, this waste problem greatly affects Bali, especially since many international activities are held here. The coordinating minister for Maritime Affairs and Investment, Pak Luhut, had discussed the waste project problem in Bali during the Bali International Air Show just recently. Responding to Luhut's remarks, the acting governor said his party would collaborate with strategic partners to handle waste in Bali. Later, the pattern will be similar to this, the subway development. We will work together with strategic partners who will appoint regional companies to work together to solve the waste problem in Bali with wise energy. According to him, by managing waste using wise energy, it will produce a waste-powered electricity generator. Yes, we'll be using an incinerator. At the same time, the technology is extraordinary. It's not inferior to Singapore. And let's finish up with Suwung Landfill fire. 8 firefighting fleets deployed. A fire broke out again at the Sarbagiza Suwung Regional Final Disposal Site, TPA, on Friday. Denpasar firefighters moved quickly, assisted by the Badung Regency Fire Department and the Denpasar and Bali Province BPBD Rapid Reaction Team. 8 fire engines were deployed to control the fire that was reported to have started at 1:30 in the afternoon. From intensive extinguishing efforts, the fire was successfully extinguished at 1700 WIDA time. Head of Denpasar City Fire and Rescue Service said the fire was triggered by prolonged dry weather due to the dry season. The hotspot was found in the bushes to the west of Suwung Pond. The extinguishing operator involved 6 Denpasar fire trucks and 2 from Badung Regency, as well as water tankers from Denpasar City and Provincial BPBD, including assistance from Denpasar DLHK. The fire was put out at 7 o'clock of 1700, as I said. However, 1 fire engine remains on standby to anticipate the possibility of new hotspots. Gotta get the trash under control. Okay, and that is it for today, for both days. So, thanks for viewing. Be kind to someone today, stay safe, and I will see you next time.